Hello and welcome to Gazzetta Football Korea, your beginner's guide podcast all about South Korean football. I'm your host, Martin Jones. With me today is Korean football expert Tom Clark. 안녕하세요.
안녕하세요. How are you, mate?
Yeah, not too bad. First pub trip post-lockdown last night, within regulations, of course, but managed to survive okay. So that's all
Feeling
good.
all right this morning?
Yeah, bit ropey first thing, but fine now. So yeah, how are you?
Yeah, all good. Had a nice weekend, a couple of beers outside, enjoying the hot weather. So lovely jubbly.
Boom, excellent. Hope you've had a good weekend too, listener. What have we got for you in today's pod? Well, some difficult weather conditions in Korea made things interesting in K1 this week, and that played a factor in both Ulsan and Pohang dropping points. An impressive performance by Jeonbuk, though, and a definite contender for goal of the season. We'll bring you up to speed with all of that. First of all, though, a little social media shout out specifically to Daejeon Citizen FC Brazil Twitter account at Daejeon FCBR and Tavern of the Daegu Warriors at Daegu Tavern for including us on their list of Korean football podcasts to check out, which was nice.
Yeah, it's really lovely of them. Like Daegu Tavern in particular, they're really active all about Korean football. Obviously, Daegu Warriors is the nickname for the national team, and when the international football comes up, they're definitely the ones in the know when it comes to the national team. But also they're very active within the K League. So yeah, it's great to hear from them, and it sparked a bit of online debate as well, which is always nice to have with people having different opinions. It'd be boring if we were all the same.
Yeah, we'll come on to that in a second. But yeah, thanks very much, guys. It has been a lot of fun doing the podcast. And I speak for Tom and Yumi when I say we all really enjoyed being part of the English-speaking online K-League fraternity. So thanks for the mention there. But yeah, as you say, Tom, some online chats following your goalkeeper ranting last week about the standard of the goalkeeping in K1. Anything else to address on that?
No, I stand by what I said. I think the level of keeping is poor, and there's a couple of well-respected Asian football writers, in particular Steve Price and Devon Rowcliffe, who made some good points on this. Saying that the rules about no foreign goalkeepers, they don't think it has really produced a good set of Korean goalkeepers compared to say 10 years ago. They've been covering Korean and Asian football for a long time, and I think when they're saying things like that, they're probably people worth listening to. And so I would stand by that. I do think the level of goalkeeping is poor. It's much worse than other positions in the K League. I mean, we all know good goalkeepers make a mistake. I mean, I was watching the Chelsea Bayern Munich game last night, and Manuel Neuer had a shocker. He came out to palm across, and it ends up falling at Tammy Abraham's feet, who tucks it in. So even the best make mistakes, but they don't make them very often, and that's the problem in the K League. Is it's quite often the mistakes are being made. But some of the other guys who follow K League a bit more, that they pointed out that maybe if they don't get a game in the K League, where are they going to get a game? How are they going to get better? Which is a fair point. But we know some of the best Korean goalkeepers go over to Japan and play over there, and so it seems a bit counterproductive that you don't let foreigners come in and improve the standard that way. But I don't have all the answers by any means, but it's something that needs to be addressed.
Yeah, and you mentioned Devon Rowcliffe there, who's got a book coming out soon, Who Ate All the Squid, which is about South Korean football, and I've got that on pre-order, so look forward to reading that.
Yeah, very much so. I'll get myself a copy as well when I can, and be a good read.
In other news, I think did we have an update on how to follow Korean football on TV?
Yes, I saw on Twitter, and some people posted about this as well, that the One Football app are now showing K-League games in certain countries, and the UK is one of them, although I was watching today just through Kakao TV, so we get it here with the Korean commentary and stuff, and that's always been great for me, so I've never had a problem with that. I did try the One Football app just to see what was going on, and there weren't streams for the games for me today. I don't know if I was having a problem, if I was in the wrong location or something, but it does seem that that's a really positive thing, because I know it's going to other countries. I saw somebody posted that they were in Brazil and they've managed to watch a game via that app, and that's with, I believe it's with commentary rather than say using Bet365 or something where you're watching it in silence, which is obviously a lot better, even if it's commentary you don't understand. But the Kakao TV has always been great for me, and I think that's now working for you. It was originally geo-blocked for you, wasn't it, up in Manchester, but down in London it was fine. But I think you're working there now as well, right?
Yeah, the north-south divide. It's been working for me fine. Yeah, so it's Kakao TV. I think if you Google it, you should be able to find it. But I did, somebody on Twitter was asking about it before, and I tweeted out a link, and he was able to follow. So and you get the commentary, which is great. And I'd almost like to have Korean commentary on English football. I think in some ways I prefer that.
I think you'd get quite tired of that quite quickly, although it would mean you wouldn't have to listen to Steve McManaman or Michael Owen. So, there's always pros.
Yeah. I was going to ask you as well, Tom, it's been a little while since we've touched on this, but could you just give me and the listener a quick reminder on how the league structure works? Because we've only got 7 weeks left of the regular season.
Right. So, so this season is, obviously it's been affected, and so it's now a shorter season. Normally they would play 3 games before the 3 games against the same team before the split. But this season, everyone plays each other home and away once, and then the league gets split top 6 and the bottom 6, and they play 5 more games. So you play every team in your half one more time. And depending on where you finished at the split depends if you get 3 home games or 2 home games. So I believe it will be the top 3 will get 3 home games, and 4, 5, 6 will get 2 home games. So there is benefit to finishing that top 3, especially when it comes down to Champions League places. Obviously the top 2 that's done and dusted. We know it's going to be one of those 2 winning the league, so they will have the same thing, the same amount of games. But Jeonbuk and Ulsan will have to play each other one more time after the split, and whoever finishes top will get that game at home. So that's a big thing with fans in as well towards the end of the season. So if it's Ulsan, they'll get Jeonbuk down in their stadium, or if it's Jeonbuk, then Ulsan will have to go across, and there's no away fans going. So I think that will make a difference. And for the Champions League places, that's the top 3, and then the cup winners. And for relegation, I think we've mentioned this a few times now, but Sangju, Sangmu, no matter where they finish, they get relegated. So it is only one, and that very much looks like it's going to be Incheon, who are quite cut adrift by quite a fair few points down at the bottom, which is a real shame because one win takes 11th up into 6th at the minute. So yeah, that would be so exciting if there was a second team going down. Obviously, it's not exciting for the team who end up in that position, but it is a bit of a shame. It does take away from the jeopardy, but there's nothing that can be done about that. It's something that needs to happen for the league and for the confederation. So it is what it is.
Very good. Thanks very much for that. Let's crack on with our Game Week 15 recap. Okay, let's start on Friday with a Friday game. Friday Night Lights in K1. FC Seoul versus Gangwon. Seoul were in 11th, and in July they only got 1 league point, but August started off a lot better for them with a win. Gangwon were in 6th. They'd had a win, 2 draws and a loss in their last 4 games. It was 3-1 to Gangwon when they met in game week 1. How did this one go, Tom?
Well, this was a really good game, actually, and there were fans in it. And I know we had some fans last week, but the Seoul World Cup Stadium in Sangam is huge, so it's capped at 10%. But 10% of that stadium is 6,000 people. They didn't have 6,000 people. I don't know if they have a separate cap of number because there is only one subway station there. So I guess most people want to be driving to the stadium anyway rather than public transport, but you're still going to have a lot of people mingling about when they need the bath and that kind of stuff. But it was great to see, and I think quite a few of the guys who are in Korea who are involved with K-League United podcasts and stuff like that, I think a lot of them live in Seoul, so it was probably the first game that they got to with fans. And I saw some friends had posted on Twitter and Instagram and stuff that they were in the stadium, and there's 4 of them who go in a group, but they're all sat separately from each other, and they've all got their masks up. So I mean, it was just nice to see people in there and enjoying games, and I'm jealous, very, very jealous of them, whether it's whether it's here, whether it's a non-league game down the road from me where I am now, or if it's Southend, or if it's Spurs. I just want to go to a game. I just want to see some live football. You know, it's so I'm really jealous of the people, and it's great for them, and it's great for the players, I'm sure, to have some fans in. I noticed that, I'm not sure specifically with the Seoul game, but with other games, I noticed that some noise was still being clapped in, but it was more like the drums and stuff, because the fans have been asked not to sing and chant. And, you know, when something happens, you're going to get excited. You might, you know, cheer for your team, but you might not sing a song. So that stuff was still coming through. As for the game, well, FC Seoul played really well. They played really well, and they got a well-deserved win. You know, throughout the first half, Seoul had some good possession, but didn't create too much. It's one of those where you watch the game, and in my mind, it was like, it looks like Seoul had about 60% possession type thing, because when they had it, they looked better with it. But when the halftime stats came up, it was actually 55-45 in Gangwon's favour. But it kind of just suggests that they weren't doing an awful lot with the ball, because it didn't feel like that they had more possession. And Seoul scored a really nice counter-attacking goal, something that I know you love in K-League, Martin.
Yeah, I'm definitely enjoying these counter-attacking goals, because they often just seem to come out of nowhere, and you seem to get more of them, I think, in a game. I don't know if that's true at all, but that's just my perception. And then it's almost like you then just have like a mini game of 3-on-3 attack versus defense, just breaking out in the middle of the game. But goal from this one, they do seem to be effective.
Yeah, it's a bit basketball-esque, isn't it? When you get this quick attack, and it is just, you know, you kind of 20, well, maybe 18 players on the pitch are suddenly not involved with it, and you get 2 or 3 attackers, a couple of defenders, and the goalkeeper, and it's right, it does become exciting. And it was this first goal was from 19-year-old Jeonbuk, and it's playing in just his second professional game. So what a great boost of confidence for him and for a young guy like that. And it was a really nice finish. Yeah, he was about 25 yards out. It was a low shot into the bottom corner. Not calling out the goalkeeper here, no mistake for him. It was, when he cuts in, it is his near post, but that's not his fault at all. It's just a really good finish, really good goal. And the second goal was, again, it was a counter attack, and that was after about 60 minutes. It kind of killed the game off then for Seoul. It was, you go 2-0 up after an hour, you're odds on to win any game. It was really similar to the first, with just the pace of the counter-attack. And this time it was Kim Jin-ya. He'd only been on the pitch for a couple of minutes, and he ran upfield and like super, super quick. And, obviously he's fresh off the bench. He's got loads of energy. You're probably sitting on the bench desperate to get on and make an impact. And what an impact he made. He beat his defender with ease, absolutely breezed past him, played a simple pass into Han Sung-gyo, who cut inside and curled a perfect shot off the far post and in. Goals that go in off the post or in off the bar always look a little bit better. And it's just like that perfect angle they got on the shot. Great goal, deserved lead, and a deserved win for Seoul, to be honest. They looked so much better than they have done in the last few weeks. They looked more organised, they looked more creative. Great to see some of their young talent get in a game. And one of the old boys thought he was on the score sheet as well in Park Chu-young. He looked to have made it 3 in the 92nd, 93rd minute, something like that, in injury time. He had 2 defenders on him, but it looked like he'd muscled one of the defenders off, controlled the ball, gave the keeper the eyes and put it in at his near post. And we think, fair play. I mean, I don't massively rate him. I never really have done, but it was a good goal. And then the ref pulls it back for a foul. And you're wondering what? He just looked to be stronger, but then it was like, maybe he did have hold a little bit of one of the defenders, possibly a high boot when he brings the ball down. But it's, if the defender leans down into it, the boot always looks a bit higher. It's a shame because it was a good goal, but it's probably with like 2 half fouls. 2 half fouls make a foul? I guess so. But I'm sure I'm sure the Seoul fans left that, the first game that they've been to at the stadium for months, I'm sure they left that like really positive about the side after, after what's not been a very good season for them.
Going back to the Korean commentary again, I saw that on the highlights, Park's goal that was disallowed, and I just couldn't figure out what was going on. I thought that looked like a decent goal, but yeah, it wasn't given. But just going back to Gangwon though, I mean, Gangwon beat Seoul 3-1 at the beginning of the season when they met before, and we were raving about Gangwon.
Yeah, they were great counter-attacking goals, weren't they? One of them, I remember the guy with a flick behind his, through his legs behind his standing leg, and yeah, like Gangwon playing really well those first few weeks, but it's all gone a bit wrong for them.
That's it. And then they beat Jeonbuk in game week 4. And we even said on this podcast that it wasn't a shock because Gangwon were a decent team, but only 2 wins since then, Incheon and Gwangju. What's going on with the one?
Well, absolutely. Yeah, I'm not sure which one of us said it was not a shock. I'm hoping that wasn't me, but yeah, they have they've flattered to deceive this season. You know, they've played some nice football at times, but yeah, haven't been able to get the wins. You know, when, like you say, they've only had 2 wins since game week 4, and against Incheon and Gwangju, it kind of suggests that, you know, they're not a great team. And a really good stat, and I'm really sorry, I cannot remember who put it up. It was somebody on Twitter, and I could have a guess, but I might get it wrong. So apologies, I should have written down who it was. But it's a great stat that Gangwon have only won once away from home since June 2019. So that's once in 17 matches, which is absolutely shocking. Again, apologies to whoever posted that on Twitter, but what a stat that is. And that's worrying for Gangwon, especially when a lot of those games have been without fans. So you kind of think, well, does that negate the home advantage? Seeing for Gangwon, I guess it doesn't.
Yep, disappointing for them. That game finished Seoul 2, Gangwon 0. August continues to be a fruitful month for the Capital Club as they record back-to-back wins. They move up 3 places to 8th. Gangwon drop 1 place to 7th. Moving on to Saturday, Ulsan Hyundai versus Suwon Blue Wings. Ulsan in first. They equaled Jeonbuk's 5-game winning streak with their late victory over Busan last week. Suwon in 10th. Difficult run. Daegu last week, Ulsan this week, Jeonbuk next week. Just looking to get through these games, you feel, and then it's Incheon, Busan, and Seoul. But they got a draw here, though, Tom.
Yeah, much to the surprise of everybody. I mean, yourself, you, me, and I think pretty much most K-League followers had this down as a home win. So credit to Suwon, because Ulsan are a good team, and they managed to keep Junior quiet, which pretty much nobody else has done this season. And he had a couple of decent half chances in the first half. He didn't get any on target, but actually, being honest, in the first half, it should have been Suwon going in 1-0 up. That there was, I think, a controversial call in the 38th minute. Suwon were denied a penalty, and in real time, I said no, not penalty. And then you saw one replay. It's a stonewall penalty. That VAR into the ref's ear. He goes to the monitor, and the whole time thinking was, well, that's going to be a penalty. Like, you know, the more replays you see, the more it looks like a penalty. The more angles you see, the more it looks like a penalty. And the ref stayed with his original decision. Really bizarre. Park Ju-ho, he just gets the defender. He just gets done for pace by Han Sok-hee, and their legs got, you know, tangled together, and it's a foul. I mean, Han is a bit theatrical when he goes down with his arms out, but that shouldn't make it not a foul. I can't see why that hasn't been given as a penalty. Yeah, you got to feel for Suwon there, and you know, they say they bury that. That's 1-0 at half time, and it's a different game, but ref didn't give it. It's when you're watching decisions like that, is when you really, really wish the refs were mic'd up and they were talking to you and they were telling you why they're not giving it, or after the game they come and give an interview why that wasn't a penalty, because I just can't see why that wouldn't be given.
Just coming back to the weather, which you mentioned at the top of the show, I switched over to this game to see what was going on and see why it was 0-0. And then I saw that Dan Croydon, who Ulsan fan, correspondent for K-League United on Twitter, who I think was tweeting from the game, saying that heat was a big factor, which we just can't tell from the TV. So it's a bit of a tricky one. One thing I've learned, at least, is to, when you see a game which is maybe slightly surprisingly 0-0, just to give the players a break. But I mean, I guess you lived there for 10 years. What is the weather like over there at this time?
Yeah, well, having not just lived there but played a lot of football in this weather, it is hard. It is seriously hard. It is so hot. It's so humid, and in places, and then we'll talk about this later in other games, the rain is horrendous, and the K-League don't postpone games for the rain, which is ridiculous. So they should do. Like, some of the pitches were unplayable this weekend, and they just still play. They plow on through. But the heat, it just drains you. Even just doing nothing. I mean, I know we're saying in England, oh, it's really hot right now, and it is, but it's not the same. You know, looking outside now, it's a hot day, and I wouldn't particularly like to be playing 90 minutes of football, but you'd survive with water on the side of the pitch and stuff. In Korea, it just, everything about it in the evening games. I mean, I know the players will be taking naps in the day, and they'll be in nice air-conditioned apartments and training complexes and stuff, but it saps all the energy out of you. And there's a reason that the World Cup in 2002 was moved forward. It was played in May, June instead of the June, July usually. Okay, I know we're in August now, but there's one reason was the rain in the monsoon season, but another is for the heat. August is tough. And yeah, I'm sure, you say Dan Croydon, I'm sure he's absolutely spot on that the game would be played at a much slower pace than it will be played if they were playing in November, when it's cold. And personally, I liked the winters, and I liked playing football in the cooler weather. But yeah, it is tough. So you've got to give the players a bit of a break when it comes to the weather conditions at the minute. It's hard. But just going back to the game, I talked about Junior being kept quiet, and he should have won it really for Ulsan. Henry, the Canadian centre-back for Suwon, he'd been solid all game, but he just went walkabout in the box. It wasn't a set piece or anything. It was just, the ball got played out to the right wing, and I'm not sure where he was going, but he moved to the near post when there was nobody there, when he was actually on Junior. Like, it wasn't good movement from the striker. I suppose technically you could say it was good movement because he stayed still when he saw the defender moving off him. Completely free, no pressure on him. Lovely cross, straight on his head. And for a big man like that, and a quality player, and good in the air, he should be scoring. Or he should be hitting the target at least. I mean, he did most things right. He headed it down. He aimed for the far post. Keeper was beaten, but it just went wide. It's tough chance, maybe, because it was slightly behind him. But a player of his quality, you expect more. You expect him to score that. You see that coming in. And I think his reaction afterwards, and his players' reaction, and the manager, you see everyone was pretty disappointed with that not going in. But the amount of goals he scored, I guess he's allowed an off day. But here's something for you, Martin. You're not used to this. It's time to give some love to the keeper, actually. So
Boom.
Yang Hyun-mo, he basically rescued a point for Suwon. Kim Tae-hee is a powerful effort from outside the box. It's destined for the bottom corner. And Yang gets down, and he gets down well, and he doesn't parry it. He doesn't push it out. He puts it wide, and they deal with the corner. And it's a really good save, because it's one, maybe you'd be disappointed if it went in, but when you see the reverse angle, it moves a bit, and it is traveling, and it is pinpoint accurate. So credit to the keeper when they make the saves. You've got to give them some love. So that was a good save, involving Kim Tae-hee again, because in the injury time he got his second yellow card. It was a tiny kick out, maybe a bit of dissent, probably a bit on the harsh side, and unnecessary considering it was the 92nd minute. The ref could have easily just said, I had a word, like, come on mate, what are you doing? There's 2 minutes to go, don't be stupid. Especially because his first half yellow card looked like it was like a little bit of a foul, a little bit of dissent, and it's like, such stupid things to get yellow cards for. To get two of them in a game, you've got to look at the player and, say that was a bit silly from him. But yeah, the refs are a bit card happy as well. So yeah, it's a disappointing result for Ulsan, but I'm sure Suwon will be chuffed. Possibly a little bit disappointed as well when they look back at the penalty and they'd be wondering what if.
You mentioned a good game for Yang in goal for Suwon. I was quite impressed by him in the game against Gwangju, I can't remember if that was last week or the week before, but yes, he seems to be in a decent bit of form. But just going back to Ulsan, they needed a late-ish winner. I think it was in the 83rd minute, maybe, against Busan last week, and held at home by Suwon this week. That's only their second blank of the season. Is this the pendulum starting to swing back in Jeonbuk's favour slightly?
I'm not sure about that. I think they're two really pretty even sides, and I think if Junior doesn't score, okay, Ulsan do have goals from other places, but he's clearly their main man, obviously. I mean, he's such a good player that it seems like half the job. If you keep him quiet, then you're in with a chance. But he had his chances. He had one really good chance, two chances he made on his own with shots that went off target. So it's just a bit of an off day for him. I know what you're saying. It was a late winner last week as well. But then had he scored that one today in the 82nd minute, then you just look back and say, 2-1-0 wins in not very nice conditions, getting the job done. But he didn't. So possibly you could say, Jeonbuk will take heart from that. But yeah, I just think we're set for I don't want like each week to be swing and say, Jeonbuk drop points next week and Ulsan win, and so next week we're saying, oh, the pendulum swinging back. I just think they're two good sides who are going to be neck and neck, and that's probably the most exciting thing, well, one of the most exciting things about this season as well. Especially, I mean, if there was a second relegation spot, that would be brilliant. But a title race is always great. So I'm really looking forward to the next few weeks.
Yeah, definitely. Your final score there was Ulsan 0, Suwon 0. Ulsan stay first, Suwon drop to 11th.
So the other matches on Saturday were your boys, Pohang Steelers. They were hosting Gwangju FC. Pohang went into this game in 5th, and last week was the first time they'd been defeated in 7 games when they lost to Jeonbuk, which, Jeonbuk were a good side. You take that as, one defeat in 7 games. It's a pretty good run. Gwangju in 8th, and they'd got their first win in 7 games last week, but that was versus Incheon, and a little bit on the fortunate side, I think we decided at the end of last week's pod. So how did this one pan out?
Well, I mean, weather being a big factor in this one, and I mentioned in a lot of the games, you obviously can't see the heat, and you can't get a sense of that. But this one, it was absolutely hammering it down, and you could see the rain even on the slightly grainy internet feed. Players were splashing around loads, which wasn't ideal. It's a kind of game I love playing in, not 11-a-side, but just playing up at the park and just getting soaking wet.
But I know what you're saying there, because like we would have loved it as kids, as teenagers, playing amateur for a laugh with your mates. This is professional league. Like, that pitch looked unplayable to me. I don't think they should have been playing. And there's space in the calendar for them to reschedule games. They, not saying they play it this week, but there's no game on Wednesday. They could have played it then. There's no game in 2 weeks on a Wednesday, 3 weeks on a Wednesday. I don't understand why the reluctance to call games off when the pitch is unplayable, and it was horrendous.
It was. I didn't notice it immediately, and it seemed like there were parts which were fine and parts which weren't. In the first 10 minutes or so, I thought, okay, raining heavily, but the ball's still moving around. It was still bouncing, but there just seemed to be one stretch, one area of the pitch, which was in Pohang's inside right channel in the first half, where it was just a huge puddle, and it was hilarious watching play go into that.
I genuinely think it's a dereliction of duty on the officials' part. They should see that. They should see the players not being able to control their own movements, the sliding. It's dangerous if there was a tackling. I mean, I know it's a bit fun that we'd say, we'd have at the park, and you make a sliding tackle and you slide for 10 meters to make it. But we're not professional athletes. Like, it shouldn't have played. They should have called it off. And even if they'd started the game and then realised that it had become unplayable, I think there was quite a bit of talk on this on social media. And I think there were other people who were agreeing with me on this and saying they just don't understand where the reluctance comes from. You think maybe the bosses are telling the referees that, you play. Strange decision.
Yeah, it was strange, and I guess it's a difficult one for us in Britain, because we don't really have much to compare it with, because we barely ever get rain like that, and I don't remember seeing that many times in England where games have to get called off. Probably a bit different in Scotland, but I mean, yeah, you're right. I was just looking at it from a comical perspective, because it was quite funny where first of all Ilychenko tried to pass it out to the wing, and then the ball just stopped, and then Gwangju almost scored on a counter-attack from that.
Yeah, exactly, which is... it is a bit of fun, yeah, and it is a laugh, and I don't want to be like the killjoy, but that's not how professional should be played. That you get a goal because the ball stops still in a puddle. It's not a good look.
No, I mean, it would have been a very good finish actually by Park Jung-soo. It was for Gwangju. Good finish by him, hit the crossbar. But yeah, funny game. Went into half-time 0-0.
But you were... earlier in the season, you were going on about the Gangwon manager, Kim Byung-soo's fashion choices, and he was calling him the Korean Fonz, if I remember rightly. You liked his style, but there was something in this game as well with the fashion, right?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, well, it's all about appropriateness of attire for the weather, and stark contrast between the two managers on this one. Gwangju manager, Park Jin-sub, woefully underprepared, wearing a grey polo shirt, and that's kind of the worst thing you can wear in wet conditions. But Pohang's Kim Head, he had a nice kind of black branded Pohang waterproof coat on and had a cap as well. So yeah, it's been a while since we checked in on the clothing choices of managers, so I thought it was worth a shout. But yeah, that was half time. 0-0. Second half, a bit more action in the second half. On-Won Sang, young right winger for Gwangju, looks like a good play. It was his turn to run into the puddle. The puddle completely robbed him of the ball, and he looked completely baffled. So yeah, On-0, puddle 1. But then on the hour mark, On was involved in the goal, which went to Gwangju. I'll say the first goal. His pass into the box, Pohang centre-back Kim Gwang-sok intercepted, and he went to clear it, but Gwangju's Willian just kind of nipped in front of him, nicked the ball off his toes, and Kim kicked through the back of Willian's right leg. Clear penalty for me. Felipe smashed it in, but Kang in goal for Pohang did get close to it. So yeah, that was 1-0 for Gwangju.
Yeah, there was no argument with that penalty, was there? It was just as clear as anything.
Yeah, no issue there. Later on, Ilyichenko had a chance. Choi Young-jun, who's centre mid for Pohang, he's the captain. And he usually kind of sits back in that kind of defensive 2 in midfield and lets O'Neill be the one to break forward. But he actually got forward into the box. Nice little touch back to Ilyichenko, and it wasn't an easy chance. It was a half chance, but we have seen Ilyichenko score half chances. He couldn't do that here. But then Pohang did eventually get an equaliser, and I think we've been pretty balanced about K1, and we've mentioned counter-attacking already in this pod, and we've mentioned previously the ability of teams to stay in games and late goals, and sometimes even we've had both teams getting a goal after the 90th minute. But this time it was Pohang's opportunity, and it was their turn, and they did it. They got the equaliser in the 90th minute. Deep cross from the wide right position, flicked on by Ilyichenko, and then Pohang sub Ko Young-jun stealing it at the far post, very much like Seon-min Kyu. But yeah, nice composed finish by the substitute into the bottom corner, and it was 1-1. What
do you think of that then? Good point for Gwangju?
Yeah, I think so. I think any game where you're winning and then you concede a last-minute equaliser is always going to be disappointing. But I think they'll look back on that in the coming days and think, yeah, actually that was a decent point. Pohang players look pretty pleased to get the late goal, as you would do when you come back from behind. I think they did deserve something from the game, but yeah, really difficult conditions. So can't draw too many conclusions really, other than probably Gwangju do actually have a bit about them, a bit of fight, a bit of determination. Also, just coming back to On-Won Sang again, he's now officially on my radar, which I think I've mentioned a few times. A couple of good performances from him, and yeah, we'll have to go through the MJ player radar at some point.
So yeah, I hope you've got a list of all the players that have made your radar, and we'll catch up on them later, because it is nice that you know 6 months ago or even less you wouldn't have heard of these players, and now, you know, after a few weeks, anyone can have a good game, but it's the ones who are doing it consistently. So it'd be interesting to know from an outsider's perspective who has impressed you, because I think anybody else, if they've watched K-League for any length of time, or any Korean footballers play abroad, like, we go into it with, you know, a perception of these players. Like, Park Ju-young would have to have a 30-goal season to impress me. You know, it's just I don't rate him, and I haven't done for years. And whereas, okay, maybe he's one of the players you would have heard of, but for other players, you haven't heard of them. So it'd be really interesting to see who you think has improved throughout the season. And yeah, just be interesting to know.
Yeah, we'll do. We'll pencil that in for next week. Probably the what I was most pleased with is Seon-min Kyu at Pohang. Obviously, I've watched Pohang probably a bit more than other teams, but I remember at the beginning of the season where I was saying, I like the look of this guy. He gets into some good positions, but he just needs to start getting some goals. And then a few weeks later, he started banging them in, and he was averaging a goal every other game. So I felt quite smug about that. So yeah, that was nice.
So that game finished Pohang 1, Gwangju 1. And so for Pohang, that point is enough to move them up to 4th on goals scored. But for Gwangju, they drop down to 10th place. So it'll be interesting to see how they go over the next few weeks. The final match that was on Saturday was what we picked out as being the game of the week, Daegu versus Jeonbuk. You know, Daegu were 3rd after their late win with 10 men against Suwon, so they were buzzing going into this game. Jeonbuk in second. Their new signings, Gustavo and Mo Barrow, giving them a new attacking impetus and looking really threatening. And earlier in the season, this was a 2-0 win to Jeonbuk, so they were probably going into this as favourites anyway. And it was a repeat of the 2-0 scoreline here as well. And this was one for you, Martin.
Yeah, very impressive performance by Jeonbuk in this one. In terms of personnel, Daegu didn't have Cecilia, which was a blow. He went off injured last week. Don't know the severity of that, but he didn't start this weekend. Daegu going with Kim Dae-won and Dejan Damjanovic up front. And Jeonbuk, they gave Gustavo his first league start. Early on, one thing that caught my eye, which you don't see very often, Han Go-won for Jeonbuk got a yellow card after 5 minutes for dissent. And it wasn't throwing the ball away, it was throwing his boot away in disgust. I think he'd been tackled and his boot came off. That was quite funny. But the first real talking point, again, still quite early, just after 10 minutes. And it was a penalty shout, and it was across from Daegu's right. And I think it was Choi Bo-kyung, the left centre-back for Jeonbuk. And he was falling to his left to block the cross. And there was a question mark over whether it hit his shoulder or his chest. And if it hit his shoulder, whether it was inside or outside the silhouette. My first thought from the first TV angle, I was shouting out, that's a penalty. And the first TV angle would have been pretty close to the referee's angle from where it was. But it wasn't given. And watching the replays, I think I was okay with that decision. I didn't see too many replays, but I think a few years ago, there's no question it wouldn't have been a penalty. But these days, with the current interpretation of the law and the stuff with silhouette, I think it possibly fall into that category of we've seen them given. But Jeonbuk.
You stick with the on-field decision because there wasn't a clear and obvious error.
Yeah, I think so. And it's one of those, we've had a few of these, and you get it across all games with VAR, but it's one of those where whichever way the referee goes, VAR isn't likely to overturn it. So I think if the referee had given a penalty, I think it'd be hard for VAR to overturn. But it wasn't given, so that was fine. So it stayed 0-0, at least up until umpire's call. Yeah, but in the end, 20 minutes later, it was Jeonbuk who broke the deadlock, and they snuffed out a Daegu counter-attack before it got going. Ball fed to Kim Bo-kyung, just kind of 5 yards or so outside of the box on the right-hand side, cut back onto his left and hit a lovely curling shot across the goal into the top corner. And first thought was, it's brilliant. But then on the replay, there was a slight deflection. I think the ball was still going in. That was my hunch, at least. It was still going in, but the deflection just gave it a bit of extra top spin, just to make sure that it moved away from the keeper. But that was 1-0. Kim Bo-kyung, he broke his duck last week, scored again this week, and then he scored again just before half-time. Keeper saved a shot. I don't think it was really a keeper error, but he did parry it, but he kind of parried it to the side, but then it ricocheted off a defender's legs, and it fell to Kim, who was all on his own in the middle of the box. Keeper was on the ground, and he just banged it in to make it 2-0 at half-time.
For a bit of a break there, it's a bit unfortunate, isn't it? He's done his job, and then it bounces off someone. It's one of those things.
Yeah, I think 2 bits of bad luck. Firstly, that it hit the defender, and secondly, that it fell perfectly to Kim Bo-kyung in the box.
Yeah, exactly.
Second half, nice in-swinging corner. I didn't catch who was involved in this, but I think it was Kim Bo-kyung with the corner. Nice in-swinging left-footed corner. And a flicked header by Son Jun-ho. He was the guy who got the Tim Cahill headed goal last week. And I saw that again on the replays, because they show the replays of goals at half-time. And that just gets better each time I see it. It was such a brilliant cross by Mo Barrow on the left, outswing, and then Son just headers it in.
Yeah, the way he jumped with his legs really far apart, giving him such a strong base to twist his whole upper body and his whole neck for it. It was a brilliant header. Yeah, love to see. And it's funny because we'll talk about a header later on in a different game where the player just like kind of closes his eyes and lets the ball hit his head and hopes it goes in. It's like, well, no, like that's not how you do it. You do it how Son did it last week.
Yeah, good effort by him. Unlucky this time though, because it hit the post and bounced out. And Daegu never really looked like getting back into this. And Jeonbuk were very organised at the back, and they saw it out 2-0.
So it was a good win for Jeonbuk, and they looked pretty impressive, didn't they?
Yeah, they did. I mean, all over the pitch, they looked good, and defensively, they were really organised as well. And for Daegu, it was tricky without Cecilia. I mean, they're far from being a one-man team, but he does average one goal involvement, if you like, goal or assist per game, which is in the top 3 in the league. And I was looking at some stats and results, and we've got a clear top 5 in K1. And I was looking at the points that those teams had got against other teams in the top 5. Jeonbuk were top with a very impressive 15. Ulsan had got 12, Sangju had got 7, Pohang had got 4, and Daegu were the worst with only 2. So slightly distorted because they haven't all played the same number of games, but that's still quite a difference. So yeah, only 2 points against other top 5 teams, but they've only dropped 4 points against the rest of the league, and no losses in that run. So I don't want to. I mean, Daegu are a very good team. I don't want to call them out as being flat track bullies, but I think it would really help their cause if they could pick up a win against one of the other top 5 teams, because no problem at all dispatching everyone else in the league. But yeah, it's just those other top teams they're struggling against.
After you read that little bit of stats out, my first thought was, so flat track bullies then.
Yeah. Okay. Well, if you're saying it, then let's go with that.
I think you're right, because they haven't all played the same number. That's probably something that we can take a look at the end of, well, when the season break comes, and that'll actually probably be really instructive for the last 5 games, because you'll see, like, if they are still struggling at the end of the first part of the season, then going into the second part, they're going to have to do a lot of work once they start playing the rest of the top 6 every week. So something to look out for anyway. But anyway, that game finished Daegu 0, Jeonbuk 2. So Daegu dropped down to 5th and Jeonbuk stay 2nd. But after Ulsan's draw, they closed the gap to just 1 point.
Moving on to Sunday, let's start with Incheon United versus Songnam FC. Incheon were in 12th coming into this game. Their mini unbeaten run came to an end against Gwangju last week. Songnam in 9th, they were also on a mini unbeaten run, which also came to an end last weekend. It finished 0-0 when they met in Gameweek 2. We thought this could have been a distinct possibility again. We only got it half right, though, as it finished 2-0 to Songnam. And Tom, I'm glad when you said you were watching this one, because I don't think I could bear it to watch another Incheon lost after last week.
Yeah, well, this wasn't as heartbreaking as last week. It wasn't the best game, a full 90 minutes of this. And one thing I like when there's only the 2 games on, if we're doing 1 game each, is I actually like being able to put my full attention onto 1 game rather than half watching 2. But maybe I didn't really enjoy it that much this week, having full attention on this one. But it was a very good win for Songnam. It's a strange one because Incheon probably slightly shaded the first half, but there was no cutting edge. They never looked like scoring. And set pieces, I mean, the first note I've written here, I was after about 10 minutes, and I was actually watching this with somebody today. And I said to them, it's going to be a set piece. It's going to be a corner. It's going to be a free kick. That is going to make the difference, because both defenses actually looked pretty organised. There was some nice passing football, but it was all in the middle third. There was no cutting edge at all. And even the enthusiastic commentators got a little bit bored. And I mean, I don't really have anything to say about the first half, to be honest. It just wasn't very good. It was a lot of play in the middle of the park, 2 teams who don't score many goals. And in Songnam's case, 1 team that doesn't concede many goals. I mean, if I really had to pick something out, it'd be maybe Iskandarov had a free kick just over the bar, but that's stretching it. And Kim Do-hyuk for Incheon, probably the only real chance I can remember them having, and it was a header. And this is the one I was talking about. It was from a corner, completely free header, no man on him, and it genuinely just looked like he shut his eyes and let the ball hit him and hoped it bounced in. And that's just a bizarre way of attacking the ball. And we talked about other guys, and you mentioned Tim Cahill. He always gets mentioned because he's not even particularly tall, is he, Tim Cahill? I think he's about 5'9" or something, and he was an absolute beast in the air. But you attack the ball, you go for it. You put your strange anyway. Bizarre. But lots of graft in the midfield, very little creativity. But it's kind of to be expected when it's the team at the bottom of the table and another team who don't score many. The second half was a bit different. It was a very strange start to it. Now, I'm going to be trying to be really precise about what happened here, but I might have got things wrong because it was very confusing. So, Lee Tae-hee for Songnam seemed to be the last man, and he just clips the ankle of Lee Jung-suk, who would have had a clear run at goal. Quite a distance out, but there was no one near him. There was no covering defenders. He would have had a clear run at goal, one-on-one with the goalkeeper. Is he going to score? Don't know, but it's a clear goal scoring opportunity for sure. Last man, red card, pretty simple decision, right? I mean, that's been the case. That's not something new. That's something we've known for years and years. But then the VAR comes in, the referee's finger to his ear, listening to something, goes over to the monitor, spends 3 minutes at least, if not 4, looking at the monitor, and the camera actually zoomed right in on what he was looking at, and he was being really precise. He was pointing, he was trying to, I think he was talking to somebody, and he was trying to point at what he wanted to see a better view of, and he was pointing at it, and it was a potential handball in the build-up, which, unless I've got the rules wrong, I thought that was only a foul if it was in the build-up to a goal. If Lee Jung-suk hadn't been tripped and he'd taken it around the goalkeeper, slotted into the empty net, then it gets ruled out because it's hit his arm. That is how I understand the rule, and I'm pretty sure I've understood that correctly. I didn't realise that would rescind a red card, and I'm still not sure on that, because it seems that, I guess you can say that without the handball, Lee Tae-hee wouldn't have needed to make a tackle. It wasn't even a tackle. It was 2 players running across each other and he tripped him. It was a foul. But I guess if it hadn't have hit the Incheon man's arm, and it wasn't like a direct, like moving his arm towards the ball, it's maybe a little movement towards the ball, but it's like a natural movement as he was running, and it did hit his arm. But I guess if it hadn't hit his arm, then there would have been no attack, so there would have been no red card. So I'm not entirely against this decision. I just didn't think that was how VAR was meant to work in this situation, and it just took so long. And I know Incheon fans were on Twitter just being like, what is going on? Like, how is this? How it's not in the build up to a goal? How has this been called back? I'm not sure. I would actually like to. It's the kind of decision that you really, really want the referee to explain and talk you through and listen to what they're saying, because I could say I'm not entirely against the decision, because without the handball, the Incheon don't win possession of the ball and they don't have an attack and they don't have the foul. So maybe it's the right decision, but I don't know if it is technically the right decision. I don't know. Like, did you have any thoughts on it?
I didn't catch it, to be honest. I was just getting very confusing notifications from the FOTMob app, which I used to follow it. It was like, oh, it's a red card. Oh, it's not a red card. So yeah, no, I didn't see it, I'm afraid.
But as I say, I was watching it with somebody, and he was saying we kind of agreed that maybe the right decision was made in the end, maybe, but it was still a maybe, and it was 4 minutes, and it was like, well, I don't know. I really don't know. I think had the red card, had it stayed, then I think we'd still be having this kind of conversation, and I'd be like, maybe it was a red card. I don't know. I sitting on the fence with this, with no strong opinions. I would probably err on the side of that I'm not against it being rescinded, because like logic would suggest, well, you don't get to that position without the ball hitting the man's arm. I don't know. It was a very strange one. But that made a big difference for Incheon, because they within 5 minutes or so, they were about to be playing against 10 men, which actually we've seen in K-League isn't always a to your benefit. But if you give them the choice, you'd rather have 10 men against you than 11. But as it was 11v11, and then a few minutes later, it was a wonderful Na Sang-ho free kick. He went the keeper side of the wall, but there was no blame on Kim Dong-hon for this, and he has been promoted into the team over Jang Sung, something that I have been suggesting for weeks. And last week in particular, I was saying, if Jang Sung is the number one, I dread to think what the number 2 is like. But in his defense, he did nothing wrong today, and he wasn't at fault for the goal, even though it's a free kick that was going on to his side of the goal. Is a great free kick. It bounced inside the 6-yard box. It hit the post and it went in. He set his wall up the right. He was on the right side. He didn't move. He wasn't wrong-footed. It was just a really good free kick. So, in those occasions, you just say fair play. Well, well done.
I think Jong-san wasn't even on the bench, was he? So he's just been completely removed from match day duties. Has the Incheon manager been listening to our podcast?
Yeah,
I mean, probably.
possibly, unless there's an injury that we've missed, and then we're going to sound a bit stupid. But yeah, no, he was not on the pitch. So maybe it's an injury, but I don't know. I haven't. This is where we need Yumi available, which unfortunately she isn't today. She would be able to correct us on this one. But yeah, I would imagine next week that Kim will get the start as well, because they might have lost. They might have conceded twice, but neither goal were his fault. In the end, this game looked like it was two quite well-organised defences. Incheon had more of the attack than Songnam, but we've kind of got used to that with Songnam this season. But Songnam's defence is the third best in the league, and they looked largely untroubled. They just, they have their two banks of four, and even a 4 and a 5 with an extra player dropping in, and it didn't look like Incheon were going to score. I genuinely stopped taking notes about the 70th minute, because it was just like, well, this is going to finish 1-0. There's not much more to it. And I carried on watching, and actually there was a second goal, and it was in the 88th minute, and Incheon did have a couple of half chances, but never. I mean, there was one chance which potential back pass, but no, it wasn't. There was another chance where one of the subs came on and he got shot off, and he actually put it through the keeper's legs, but it went wide. But I don't know. I never really thought Incheon were going to score. But as I say, Songnam went up in the 88th minute, and it was now getting his second of the game. He changed direction really well, curled it beautifully into the far post. No fault for the goalkeeper, but he had two defenders on him, so one of them really should have got closer to try and block the shot. You can understand one standing off a bit in case he cuts back onto his other foot again. But when you got two, one of them can commit himself. He can throw himself forward, and if he gets done by a good turn of pace, there's another man to protect him. But they were 2 meters off. But credit to Na, it's a great finish, lovely goal, curled it into the far post beautifully. And I know Songnam aren't the most attractive team to watch. They've only scored 12 goals in 15 games after all, but they have the third best defensive record, and there's more than one way of playing football. You don't have to go out there and score a ton of goals to win games. You can rely on your defense and win games narrowly. And they've won 4 games, but they've got a load of draws, and they went up from 11th to 6th today with that. Got to give them credit when they pull off these wins.
Yeah, and their nickname, of course, is the Magpies, and we know the old saying: 1 for sorrow, 2 for joy, 3 for a goal, 4 for a 15-goal striker to bang them in and get you up into the top half. Just what they're lacking. I think that's what my grandma used to say anyway. But your final score there was Incheon 0, Songnam 2. Incheon stay 12th, as Tom says. Songnam shoot up into 6th, and they're back in the top half for the first time since game week 6.
Yeah, and at the same time, you were watching Sangju versus Busan. So it looked like I'd got the short straw, but yours was a 2-0 as well, wasn't it? So, Sangju in 4th, a win, 2 draws and a loss in their last 4. Busan were in 7th, and their decent run of form had tailed off with 2 losses, but, they were against Daegu and Ulsan, good side. And it was a tough run for Busan, coming up against Sangju. And like we say, it was another 2-0, and it was 2-0 to Sangju.
It was indeed. First half, I mean, I didn't see any rain during the game, but I did see a few players slipping around, so it must have been wet underfoot. Sangju had a half chance early on. Han-suk Jong, Sangju centre mid, he did a nice through ball through to Kimbo Sub, just a bit too heavy. But then a moment later down the other end, Lee Dong-jun for Busan, he was almost released with a nice diagonal ball from deep, but just couldn't get onto it. But yeah, a bit of attacking action from both teams. Han-suk Jong, who I mentioned for Sangju, is also their captain, seemed to be at the heart of everything today. He's not a player I've really noticed. And going back to my player radar, the players you notice first of all are the attackers, the strikers, and the wide attackers and the creative midfielders. But just having watched the league a bit more now, just starting to notice the players a bit further back in the pitch who get things going. He did a good job today, but it went in 0-0 at half-time, and I had a sneaking suspicion that this might end up another Sanger's 1-0 job. And it almost did. We'll come on to that. But second half, Kimbo Sub, who I mentioned a second ago, it's like he decided, right, I've had enough of this 0-0. and he was going for it, and he had a penalty shout about 5 minutes in, but Kim had actually fouled the defender first, and then overtook the defender. Then the defender fell over and caught Kim, so it was actually a foul by Kim. A couple of minutes later, he got on the end of a counter attack, just couldn't get the ball out of his feet, and he shot wide. But then on the hour mark, Kim was involved again, won the ball in midfield, passed it left to substitute Seon-min, who'll come back to in a second. But he laid it off to the impressive Kang Sang-woo on the left. Lovely right-footed shot from outside the box, just fizzed past the post. And look on Kang's face, he really thought that was going in, but he didn't. But then with 15 minutes to go, Seon-min with an absolute belter of a goal. Definitely one of the best goals I've seen all season. Received the ball out on the left-hand side, and he drove into the box. Busan had several defenders back at this point, but it was great footwork and balance from Moon. And you're just watching it thinking, oh, is he going to do something? Oh, no, he isn't. Oh, yes, he is. And then he a couple of really nice touches off both feet just to shift it past the defenders, and then nice, composed, side-footed finish through the defender's legs into the corner. And it didn't look like there was any way through, but his last couple of touches before the finish, when you watch it from the replay behind the goal, and you just see how he shifts his weight and shifts the ball left to right to left. Really, really good goal.
Oh, yeah, it was brilliant. Like I liked the angle from the camera at the far end of the ground, so you were looking behind him rather than the reverse angle. And yeah, it was great. He was so strong as well. He just bounced off, big strapping centre back, just knocked him down, like bounced off him, kept his balance, combined with great dribbling and then a lovely finish. It was deliberate as well. You could see he was placing it between the legs where the keeper couldn't reach it. It's great, yeah, great. And top celebrating as well. It looked like he was doing a bit of the Macarena while bunny hopping at the same time. Brilliant. And goal like that deserved a nice celebration.
Yeah, who knows what that was about. Yeah, it was a dance. It was like a bunny hop, kangaroo type thing. But it looked like Sangju back to their 1-0 best. And but then just before the final whistle, Moon got his second. Kimbo sub involved again, as he was all the way through the second half. Really nice weighted through ball, straight to the middle. Moon running in on the diagonal, and he went round the keeper. Two defenders sliding in. Moon's finish was on target, and I thought one of the defenders probably should have stopped it, but it somehow just crept between. I'm not criticising the defenders for that, but it's just unlucky. I think
between the two of them, like you're looking at that and you just see two of them sliding in. One, you're expecting a Phil Babb moment, and we watched the replay and we're sure one of them is about to split the post and maybe not father any more children, but. How that managed to go in with two of them sliding back like that, I don't know. But another good goal. He's a good player, Moon. He really is.
Yeah, and we definitely touched on this before, but interesting how they use him, because he always starts on the bench and then he always comes on either at halftime, sometimes even before halftime, but he's always on the pitch by the end. But they've got two good wide attackers who start normally, Kang Sang-woo and Kimbo Sub on the other side. So they've got a system there, and it works well for them. They've got a decent array of attacking ability, along with Oh Se-hoon, big striker up front. But that finished 2-0 to Sangju. And I think as I was watching this, the main question really was whether Sangju could break down Busan. That was the question that was always in your mind, because it just seemed to be Sangju edging it. And we know Busan can be stubborn at times when they want to be, not always, but we have seen that on occasion from them. Pitch was a bit difficult. Sangju players had a bit of difficulty with that, more so than Busan. I thought they didn't always trust the run of the pitch, and a few times they overcompensated by putting a bit of extra oomph on the pass. But then the pitch ended up playing true in it, and the through pass was just a bit over hit. But a real moment of quality to settle it, and it involves 0 passes, just brilliant footwork. So if your passing isn't working, give it to Moon and let him dribble through the whole defence. But in terms of Sangju overall, they've never scored more than 2 goals in a game, but they've scored 2 in 3 of their last 4. So who knows? Could be if they can improve in that direction, they'll be. Well, I mean, they are a legitimate top team, but it'll be interesting to see how far they can push on, and they're back in positive goal difference as well.
Yeah, absolutely. They're a good team, and I really like Moon, and that was a brilliant goal, and it's right up there with goals of the season. I can't remember them all off the top of my head, but it's certainly up there, So that finished 2-0 to Sangju, or 2-0 to Moon anyway. And Sangju move up to third, and Busan drop down to ninth.
Right, let's see how we did in our predictions for game week 15. And Tom, you got 3, Yumi got 2, and I got 3 as well.
Yeah, wasn't looking too good for me at one point, but got the first 3 wrong, but then came back strongly.
So I miscounted your tally here. So you got 3, so you're on 43. Yumi, we got some predictions off her, so her 2 points takes her on to 36, and then I got 3, so that puts me on to 39. In terms of the league table, Ulsan top by a point from Jeonbuk. Is this a pendulum swinging back again? Who knows? But 7 points behind them are Sangju Sangmu, and they are 3 points clear of Pohang and Daegu, who are level on points. Top 5 is pretty much sewn up, which means it's all about the 6th place trophy. And what a race it is. And Songnam are currently in possession. And they are followed by Gangwon, Seoul, Busan, Gwangju, and Suwon in that order. All within 3 points, though, of the Magpies. After their loss, Incheon are 9 points adrift at the bottom. In terms of the Golden Boot, Ulsan's Junior Negrao, he drew a blank, so he's still on 18. Same for Pohang's Stanislav Ilyachenko, he's on 10. And Daegu's Cecilia and Gwangju's Felipe on 8. A couple of things to just go through before we wrap up game week 15. Incheon, Tom.
Yeah, I just say, Mark, do you think that we could be at the point where we're saying Incheon might go winless?
It is looking like that. 15 games, we've had 5 draws. And I think after these last 2 games, against Gwangju, where they were winning up until the 70th minute, but then lost 3-1. And then the game this week against Songnam. I mean, Songnam are a decent defence, but it would have been an opportunity. I think it's a genuine possibility they could go winless the whole season.
I mean, I can't see a game that I'm going to be predicting them to win. I mean, I don't think I have at all. I think the best is I've given them 1 draw, maybe since the first couple of weeks. I'm not sure. I can't remember what the first 2 weekends of predictions were like. But yeah, it's going to be tough. But surely they're going to have to dig a 1-0. I mean, that would be, getting relegated is bad, but going winless is just, you don't live that down. That lives with you as a player, as a manager, as a coaching team. That will live with you for, well, basically forever, won't it? But yeah, we'll see. Hopefully they get at least 1 on the board at some point.
Just looking at their fixtures, they've got Daegu away coming up, so that's going to be tricky. But then they've got Suwon. Even Suwon didn't have a great start, but they're looking a bit better now. Away at Sangju after that. I mean, I'm just looking to see when they're playing Gangwon, because Gangwon seem like a team who would lose to Incheon the way things are going, but they don't play them for quite a while. For final game of the season, in fact, actually, or at least final game of kind of the regular season. So yeah, it could be tricky. Listener question as well from Phil in Putney. Thanks for getting in touch, Phil. His question is this: would someone like Songnam prefer to finish 7th rather than 6th? Reason being, if they finish 6th, it could be 5 matches against good teams where they could get 0 points, or they could be in 7th and finish the season with a few good results.
It's a good question, and I see what he means. You finish 6th, and if you have this really bad run, you go into the next season on a bit of a downer maybe. And of course, Songnam have the cup as well. So, you'd go into the cup semi-final having not won for quite a while. So, I see what he means. But then if you finish 7th, yeah, you could win a few games, but that's not a sure thing that they're going to finish in 7th and then beat the other teams around them, because a lot of those teams are very, very even. So, just because they finish 7th or, whatever in that bottom half doesn't mean they're going to win a few. So I think just as a professional player and a manager and a club, you want to finish 6th because that's a good finish, and that would represent a really good season for Songnam. I know what he's saying. Maybe he's not just talking about Songnam in particular, but other teams as well. But yeah, I mean, because like Seoul and Gangwon, they'll be really disappointed if they don't finish in the top half. Whereas for the other teams from sixth downwards at the minute, sixth place would represent a good season, even if they went on and didn't do too well in the last five. So it's probably hypothetical, as I don't think Songnam will finish in the top six, but I think they would love to. It's an interesting question, but I think they would love to. What do you think, Martin?
Yeah, I think so. I think you would. I think these are professional players. To get to where they are now, they've had to sacrifice a lot and they've had to work hard, and you have to be very driven to get to that top level. So I think they'll be. I think all the teams will be trying to win every single game. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. I mean, they are so close. All those six teams in within 3 points of each other. So it's a nice little mini league down there. And yeah, I mean, I jokingly mentioned the sixth place trophy, but I think that's where the real interest is. Well, obviously the real interest is at the top because we've got a fantastic title race between two great teams. But I think third, fourth, fifth, that's pretty much sewn up. Sangju, Pohang, Daegu, shuffle them around any particular order. That could be how it finishes. But then sixth place will be interesting. And I think if I was Gangwon or Seoul, I would be building up that idea of a sixth place trophy because you want to motivate your players to kind of carry on putting 110% into it for the rest of the season. So yeah, I'd be bigging up that finish and I'd be making that target.
Yep, I agree.
Right, let's move on to game week 16 and our preview for next weekend's games. Another Friday game, Songnam at home to Busan. Songnam in sixth, as we mentioned. Great start to the season for the Magpies, but a string of losses in June derailed them a bit. A few draws and wins recently, so they're on a bit more of an even keel. Busan are in ninth, 3 losses in the spin, albeit against Daegu, Ulsan and Sangju. They'll be looking to get back to winning ways against the Magpies. Last time they played, it was 1-1. Songnam, this was the game Songnam had 2 players sent off, but Busan didn't go for the win. And I was talking to one of the Busan guys on Twitter, and I was just saying how that was the most frustrating thing I've seen in K1 all season. I don't support Busan or Songnam, but yeah, very frustrating. How do you see this one going, Tom?
I think this one will be a draw as well. Hopefully it won't be 9 men versus 11, but I think it'll be a draw. It's a really good win for the Magpies today, but I fancy Busan to get something here, probably 0-0 or a 1-1.
Yeah, I've gone for an away win on this one. I think
that would have been third on my list of results.
Yeah, we'll see how that goes. I think Busan continues to be the team where we seem to have slightly different views on it. I think that, and to be fair, I think that's because they're a difficult team to read. Really, guy I was talking about is called Todd Wild, Busan correspondent, and he wrote a good long piece on the K-League United website about what's going on with Busan. It seems to be quite a lot of complicated stuff going on off the pitch. So, bit of an enigmatic team, I think, Busan. Moving on to Saturday, the big game. Ulsan Hyundai versus Pohang Steelers. Ulsan in first, Pohang in fourth. Both coming off disappointing draws. However, throw those record books out of the window because this is the East Coast Derby.
A huge game. Definitely the game of the weekend. Home fans as well, which plays in Ulsan's favour. And you could say maybe that's a little bit unfair on Pohang because when they hosted the game at the Steelyard, they had to do it in an empty stadium. But yeah, that's life. Ulsan to get back to winning ways and an Ulsan win.
Yeah, I've gone for Ulsan as well. I don't really know why I've done that going against the Steelers. Yeah, I'm gonna change that to a draw. I think they'll get a draw. So
you could be disappointed in you not predicting a win.
It's from doing too many of these predictions with Yumi. I think backing your own team. So also on Saturday we've got FC Seoul versus Sangju Sangmu. Seoul in 8th, 1 win in June, no wins in July, but August has been a lot kinder for the capital club. Managerial change helps as well. They're coming off back-to-back wins. Sangju in 3rd after conceding 5 against Ulsan and 2 against Gangwon. They seem to be back to the real Sangju, winning 2-0 against Busan. Tom, is the Seoul revival for real, or do you see Sangju getting this one?
Yeah, hard one to call actually. 2 weeks ago, I think this would be a reasonably easy one to call. Or 2, 3, 4 weeks ago, I would have just said Sangju, no doubt. But Seoul looks good. They did look good on the weekend, and so I'm going to say a draw for this because Sangju are a good side as well. I don't think Seoul looked good enough to beat them, but yeah, I'll go for a draw here.
I was just looking at I've got the league up in front of me, and interestingly, Seoul have only drawn one game all season, which is the lowest in the league, so a bit being more bust. I think I'm going to go Sangju 1-0. I mean, that's what it was when they met earlier in the season, so that's what I'm going for again on this one.
It's the safest bet with Sangju as well, isn't it? 1-0 to the Sangers.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, statistically most likely to happen. And the third game on Saturday, Suwon Samsung Blue Wings versus Jeonbuk Hyundai Motors. Suwon in 11th. This is the third match in their triple header against top 5 teams. Only conceded 1 goal in the other 2 games, though. Jeonbuk in second, coming off a very polished win against Daegu. How's this one going?
Obviously, Suwon will be buoyed with their draw against Ulsan and a little bit of an upturn in form, but I don't see anything but a Jeonbuk win.
Yeah, same here. Away win, Jeonbuk for me. 2 games on Sunday. Daegu FC versus Incheon United. Daegu in 5th, Incheon in 12th. What we were saying earlier, the jig's up for Incheon. It feels routine victory here for Daegu.
Yeah, it's a Daegu win. I don't have an awful lot to add to that. Daegu are good. Incheon aren't good. Daegu score goals. Incheon don't score goals. Incheon don't keep clean sheets. Daegu win.
Same here. Don't know yet if Cesinha will be fit, but I don't think you need Cesinha against Incheon.
Exactly. Even if he is fit, it's probably give him a rest, let him properly recover from whatever injury he's got, and you win it anyway.
And the final game, Gwangju FC versus Gangwon FC. Gwangju in 10th. They'll be feeling in good form after almost taking 3 points away from the Steelyard this weekend. Gangwon in 7th, and they haven't won a game since their last match against Gwangju in game week 11.
Yeah, it's 2 quite average, uninspiring teams here, and you combine that with Gangwon's awful away record. I'm going to put a draw down, and maybe as I didn't know about this away record run until this week, maybe this will bust it and they'll get the win. But no, I'm going to go with a draw.
I'm going to go for a home win here with Gwangju. Mentioned On Sang, the youngster. I think he's going to continue his good form and inspire Gwangju to win. I don't think Gwangju will need much to beat Gangwon. It could be low scoring, probably a 1-0. Right, very good. That's our game week 15 pod done and dusted. Tom, thank you very much. Kamsahamnida.
Kamsahamnida. Always fun, always lovely to have a chat, and always good to watch the football.
Kamsahamnida to you too, listener. I hope you enjoyed it as well. You can stay up to speed with us on social media at Gazzetta Korea on Twitter. We're also on YouTube, where we host the video version of these podcasts, and we're on Facebook as well. In the meantime, stay subscribed to the podcast, and we look forward to catching up with you next weekend for some more K-League action.